Welcome to Burnt Out. The Burnt Out podcast shares the stories of firefighters, emergency personnel, and other first responders around the world to create a pathway to save lives. The stories you will hear are real and may be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. And now I'd like to introduce you to your host for Burnt Out, a 33-year retired veteran of the fire department, Skip O.
Hey, Sean, thank you for that introduction. We'd like to welcome everybody to Burnt Out Podcast. And we also like to thank our sponsors, Command Post Wellness, Turning Point Madison County, and Bridges of Hope, the Warrior's Pathway to Recovery. Hey, if you want to see any of our sponsors, jump on our website, burnoutpodcast.org, and you can find out more information about them. In all seriousness, we'd like to thank our sponsors because if we didn't have them, we wouldn't be able to do this. But we're going to have some fun. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for being the co-host today on our show. How you doing today?
I'm here. I'm happy. I'm good. I'm ready to get this going on. Looking forward to talking to Paul. I haven't talked to him for a while. But, yeah, this should be interesting. No pressure, Paul.
Thanks.
None.
Well, Paul, we got Paul all the way from Tennessee. He's on the show here, and Paul was he's a firefighter, and also he's had his struggles and successes. Paul, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you want to give everybody a little description of yourself so they can get to know you a little bit better? Your background?
Sure. I'm knocking on 32 years in the fire service, hoping to retire pretty soon. On my second marriage, three kids, great kids with this one. Like you said, I've been through my ups and downs, and it's a good day.
Well, Paul, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming on here. Like I said, this is real laid back. We're going to act like we're either at the fire station or just sit around and talking and just be yourself. You know, that's all we can be. I don't know about you guys. For years, I tried to be something I wasn't. You know, tried to, cover a lot of things through drinking, through doing different things on the fire department, all those pains that we see and going on those runs and all that destruction. But Paul, can you relate to, like, when you got on the fire department, say 6 months, a year before that, was that one of your dreams to be a firefighter?
I don't know if it was a dream. It was actually more like a calling. My mother told me when I was a kid, she said, you're going to grow up to be a policeman or a fireman or something, because I was always out running around, trying to help somebody do something.
Tell us about your adventure in the fire department. What got you to where you're yourself in trouble at? I mean, you've been at 33. I mean, how many years have you been to the department?
I'm working on 32 right now, Jim.
32. So
yeah.
How long ago was it that you realized that you had a problem you had to have addressed and had to get some help for? Can you tell us, like, the events leading up to that?
Several traumas, a lot of pediatric stuff. They called me a shit magnet. I went through paramedic school in 99. I was an EMT before that. I got the bad calls, the bad structure fires that involved the fatalities. I happened to be on shift. There was a lot of them. When I went to the COE, Dr. Morris said I was telling her about stuff that went back to 1991. So it all came to a head, I guess. I had a neck surgery in June of 2019, and when I came out from under anesthesia in the hospital, I had to stay overnight. And when I came, I was in bed. I started having these nightmares, and it was from scenes and victims, patients. I could see them, hear them. I could smell the scene. The nurses came in. They said my heart rate on the monitor had jumped up from like 80 to 120. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I had a dream, but y'all woke me up. So, and that's where I knew something was different, but I didn't know what it was. And let me go ahead and mention this. In 2017, I'm part of a Tennessee Public Safety Network. We go around and do debriefings for law enforcement, fire, and EMS. As far as I know right now, I'm the only firefighter in the state that's on the team, so I get called to a lot of stuff. But we went through a week's worth of training with Tennessee Public Safety Network, and they taught us the signs and symptoms of people in trouble, people in distress, And for some reason, when my eggs started cracking, I didn't see the stuff in myself. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. But yeah, 2019 is where it started. Like I said, in the hospital. After that, things just kind of kept going downhill. In late July, I just wanted the nightmares to stop. I wanted my wife to quit telling me there was a problem, and things just, spiraled out of control.
Let's rewind just for a second. Let me rewind back. When you had those bad calls through the years, and I know some of the ways I handled it. My way was going drinking or doing something else. I never told anybody, and we didn't really have a peer support back then. What's some of the ways did you handle those calls? Like, what's some of the things, did you do any of the substance abuse, or did you do anything that was negative to handle those situations?
I probably drank more than normal. I mean, I like beer. So I have a beer, typically probably a couple times a week at least. I'll sit down and have 2 or 3 beers. But after those calls, yeah, I'd get, trying to just get medicated enough to go to bed. So, I'd have several extra on after those calls. Yeah, I would.
I refer to that as trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. When you get like that after a call, when you go out and get smashed, it's just trying to put everything in perspective. And it worked temporarily.
For a few minutes.
Yeah, until you shake that hangover off the next day. Then it's back and worse.
Okay, Paul, let's go back to where you left off. Now your wife is getting on you, say you need some help. You had that everything, and something's going on. Now take it, when you said the COE, remember, a lot of people have never heard of the COE, the Center of Excellence, or anything. So you might, when you go into that story, explain to what that is.
The Center of Excellence is an inpatient facility in Maryland, Upper Marlboro, Maryland. They deal strictly with fire and EMS persons. They know, they may not have served in the fire service, but they've spent enough time with people in the fire service to know kind of how we are. And I didn't think I'd open up to them, but it didn't take long after kind of realizing, hey, these folks, they've been there. They've hung around us. They know how we are. And I started opening up a little more, and it helped me. That place is something else up there. So
tell me, a few days before you went in, how'd you find out about it, and who got you there, and all that good stuff? You don't mind telling us that story?
Well, my wife was about to, she threatened me a couple different times. She goes, if you don't do something, I'm going to take the kids and I'm getting out of here because I can't handle this. And like I said, I couldn't put this on myself. I didn't see what was going on to me, even though I had the training. There was one night in, I don't care to tell you guys this. There's one night in late July, everything just got too heavy and everybody was in bed. It was probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I sat out on the back deck with a gun in my mouth, and my son saved my life, but it was right at that time I knew, okay, this is not normal. I don't do this kind of stuff, and I got to do something. And I started reaching out to a couple people that I know, and they pointed me in the right direction, got me to a therapist. And she was great. We were doing EMDR and all this kind of stuff. And she finally told me about, I guess it was in the 1st of November, maybe a couple of weeks in November. She said, look, I can help you, but this might take years. She said, you have so much stuff and this might just take a really long time. And she said, what I suggest is you immerse yourself in the healing process. And I said, Jerry, what are you talking about? And she said, I'm suggesting to you go inpatient. And she goes, I know a couple places around Nashville. I know a couple places around Knoxville, Chattanooga. And I thought, am I that bad? And she said, you really need to immerse yourself in the healing. I reached out to the IAFF's 14th District Vice President. I reached out to Tennessee Professional Firefighters President at the time. And both of them said, there's this new place. It's only been open for about a year, maybe a couple years. The Center of Excellence. They said, if you're going to go inpatient, you should strongly look at that place. I called them up. Probably a couple hours later, they called me back. They said, we've got a bed for you. When can you be here? So at that point, I told my wife, I said, here's what my therapist suggested. Here's my options. And I said, I like the sounds of this place in Maryland. They only deal with fire and EMS. And I said, that's what I am. So, I actually took off and drove myself up there, it was a little different, and I don't remember the drive up at all. I don't remember. I remember getting there, but I don't remember the drive up. So, and that's kind of where Jeff came in.
Oh, I'll start there. Paul, I always sounded, this is not trying to make you sound weak or anything, but how scared were you of making that change, leaving your home, leaving your state, your friends, to come to Maryland and to get help for which you really don't know, have a good grasp on what's going on yet? I mean, was that scary, or how would you describe that?
That was terrifying. The day I got in my truck and left my house, I was scared shitless. I mean, the only thing that kept me going was knowing that, trying or even thinking of suicide and my wife leaving me, losing my kids, all this stuff, that's the only thing that kept me driving up there. But it was terrifying. I had no idea what to expect. I'd never done it before.
Paul, take us through the day. Like, you get the Center of Excellence and you left Med One. You're getting in the groups. You're starting to do the daily routines with everybody, the fires. Could you let somebody that's listened, that's never been to the Center of Excellence, kind of paint them a picture of your day?
Well, you got your intake, which mine, I drove straight up there. I don't know, it was 7 hours, something like that. I got up there about 10:30 at night. Your intake process is a little aggravating, but I mean, no huge deal. But once you get through that, they put you, like you said, over in Med One. I guess they're watching you. We were never really told, but I guess they're watching you to see if maybe you had withdrawals, if you were, if you had dependency issues that maybe you need to be treated for. Once they found out I wasn't dependent on anything, they shipped me over to Med 2. And again, it was just talking to Dr. Abby. And eventually you get moved down into one of the houses. But you make a lot of friends and you make a lot of lasting friends. People from all over the U.S., you realize, hey, I'm not the only one that's got some kind of problem going on. I'm not even the only one that's got the same kind of problem, exactly the same as myself. There's other folks out there that are going through the exact same stuff. And, when you go to trauma therapy, that class, that's when you really, the hair on the back of your neck starts standing up. You start listening and thinking, God, man, I've been right there. I know exactly what he's talking about. So, and like I said, somewhere in the process, the light turns on. I can tell you when it was, but it was in my trauma class. All of a sudden, everything kind of made sense again. But that was toward the end. I was up there for 33 days. So they work their magic. They give you the tools, teach them to you. And some of the stuff you think is just bullshit. I mean, coloring and stuff.
No, I had a problem with the coloring book too. I do remember that.
Yeah. I thought, what is this? I mean, but something worked, I did what they asked. I did get upset once or twice, but I went with the process. I went and trusted it, and something in there clicked. It worked, and I'm still here.
You had to call that the aha moment.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah.
It's what the aha moment, when everything collapses together, it forms a picture. Yeah. Yeah. I never did color, by the way.
I did. I colored.
I think you know that. No, I think you know that. Paul and I were roomies at the COE. He was across the other end of the room for the bunks. And because it's shaped up like a bunk room firehouse. And he was across there. And I'll leave it like that. That's how we met.
Well, I tell you, Paul, when you speaking about the trauma classes and you said that's when things started to make sense, what I remember, and I don't know if either one of you guys will answer this, I was afraid to share stuff. I didn't want to bring it up. What happened to me, like you said, other guys and ladies been in there, been certain traumas that I've been through, especially with the kids. And I seen somebody, they put it up on the board, and I seen somebody go through that process. That gave me the courage to walk through that door, to go back in my mind, to talk about that, because those guys led it for me. And that's how it works. Somebody might be there a week or two ahead of you. You can see them go through the process, which gives me more courage and faith to walk through that process and take care of those demons of the past that I always held to myself and thought nobody understood. Is that kind of, watching those guys or people go through it, did that help you walk through that door?
No, sure. Absolutely. I thought, if this guy can work the process and shed his tears while he's doing it, I can too.
I think that's the biggest thing with peer support, like us on here, sharing this. Hopefully somebody that's listening to this has a family member, whether you're in law enforcement, military, that struggled with the same thing, that will go seek help. But I thought me and Jeff and all of us talked about this. That campfire, what that campfire mean to you?
Oh man, the campfires at night, and what those were all, that's where some real therapy happened. Honestly, that's where some real therapy happened. And I was amazed to find out that they wasn't even supposed to be doing it. We were buying our own wood, but that's where some real therapy happens. That's where you really start talking to different ones and saying, man, did that really, how was that with you? And it goes back and forth. And that's where some real stuff happens.
Jeff, what do you think? Did you get the same thing out of the campfires?
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to them. And of course, I know some of the nights it was brutally cold, and that's all you had was that fire in front of you. Your backside was freezing. But I remember we got some cigars and passed them on out, sat around a campfire one night, and we shared some stories. And it was good. It was nice and therapeutic. I enjoyed those. And everybody up and up. And it didn't seem like any of the staff came down there. They came down there maybe once or twice to say hi, and then rolled out.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much just up to us guys, which was great. Guys and gals, we had some stories, man. It's like that, just like around the kitchen table. I remember when, the old guy for real, we hear that. I remember when we did this and that, but it was good. It was good stuff.
Sure. I remember, I wanted about 2 weeks in, and I know we're talking about the Center of Excellence, but there's other treatment centers around the United States that does a good job too. So whether you're in law enforcement, military, we can connect you with that too. But from my experience, 2 weeks, I wanted to come home. I called my wife. I said, hey, would you pick me up at the airport? Because I was going to walk to the airport. I don't care if it was 30 miles away. Somebody drove me there. So I thought in my mind, they were going to take me to the airport. I had to walk. I walked out to the campfire, and Dave, this guy, firefighter from Milwaukee, I said, man, I can't do it. I got to leave. He looked at me and smiled, and he said, Skip, I said the same thing to my wife last week. You know what she said to me? I go, what? She goes, are you the best husband you can be when you come home? And I had to tell her, no, I'm not. And that answered his question, and it answered mine too. I turned around, called my wife, and I said, I'm going to stay here. I need to stay here. Did you guys have those moments when you wanted to leave?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. And our union rep there, he's going to talk me down. It was a Friday. I remember I'm out of here. And it said a couple other words too, but he told me to give it to the weekend and make my decision on Monday. And I gave him that. And they helped me out through the weekend. It was the development of that aha moment. You usually have a breakdown, as we know, when things just don't come together and everything's all disorganized. You just can't put 2 + 2. And I gave him the weekend. I stayed, and it was the best decision I made by staying. But I was ready to bounce, man. I had my truck right there in the parking lot. I was ready to go.
Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I questioned it the very first night. I was like, my truck's parked out here. I drove myself up here. I can drive myself home. I don't know about this place. And it seems like the wall you hit in a couple weeks. You're missing home. You're missing everything about home. The center really isn't making sense right then. And they kept telling me, trust it, just trust it, just trust it. And if you put your trust in it and go with the program, they'll help you. I mean, I won't say I was as bad or worse than anybody else, but there was a point I was pretty bad.
Sure. We got Bridges of Hope here, the Warriors program. There was a guy that went through there the same way. He called me, wanted to go home. He was ranting and raving. And of course we talked him down, and I just want to let you know, he's 8 months sober today. He works at a treatment center for young people, and he's happy. So if you do trust that process and you do go through these things, you weather the storm, go against the grain of what you usually believe, it works out for the best. At least it did for me. Hope it did for you guys too.
Oh, absolutely.
It did. But I would jump on that too, because when I walk in that place, I don't know anybody there. I've only heard the stories and recommendations, so on and so forth. And again, I'm not clear as to what the hell's going on with me either. So my trust factor was zero. I didn't trust anybody. And because I don't know anybody, my comfort zone was totally gone. And I just pretty much subjected myself through my whole stuff. Here I am, take me for what I am. But my trust was not there. It took a long time to develop that.
I think the one thing I kind of told myself was, if I was working a structure fire right now, or if I was working a medical call, I wouldn't just quit right here in the middle of it. I wouldn't just quit and walk away and go home. I'd finish this up. I'd work it till the end. And that kind of helped me get over that hump.
That's a good analogy to look. I know we got to have our little, live in the moment, get us through this moment. We'll see what happens in 10 minutes from now. Okay. Paul, you went through your treatment, I think it's 33 days.
Yep.
You got out of treatment and you went home. Okay. Describe the next 30 days when you went home.
I felt better, but I felt worse, if that makes sense. And I didn't feel worse in that work bothered me. It was more about my home life because, I had some marriage counseling going on at the same time. My wife would be on the phone with my therapist and me, and we were, working some stuff out. And she told me a lot of stuff my wife did that I just didn't realize. And after I got my head back right, I realized some things that I was doing, just mean, hateful, just anger. And I felt bad when I came home and looked at my wife. I felt bad for having acted like that toward her and toward my kids, So, of course, the city called. They wanted to have a meeting with me. They wanted to know any way they could help me get back to work. And I told them what they could do. They fulfilled part of it, not all of my requests. I only had 2 real requests. They did half of it. I went back to work the end of January sometime. And I tell you, the first time the tones went off after I was back to work, I was like, there's so many thoughts that ran through my head. Is this my call? Number one. Number 2, what is it? Is this going to be a bad MVA? Is this going to be a structure fire? Is this going to involve some kind of another trauma? And if it does, how am I going to react to that? And talking to my therapist about it, she said, you should be fine. She said, you have tools now. The center gave you tools. You know how to deal with some stuff a little better than you did before. She said, I know it's still kind of a work in progress, and it is even to today. But she said, your training should take over on scene. She said, I think if you have any problems, it might be after the fact, after you're back at the station. And she said, if you do have a problem, she said, 24/7, call me. She said, we'll talk it out. And I really appreciated that in my therapist. She made herself available to me anytime, day or night. Knock on wood, I haven't had to call her in the middle of the night. There was a couple times I really wanted to, but I got it worked out myself for the most part. And it's not what it is, what you're doing, what you're seeing, and what you're having to deal with. But the biggest thing is how you process it. A lot of people think, that don't bother me. And that's fine, but it's not. It's how you process it. If you process it right, you can deal with it a lot better. So I've and Jeff and everyone here, we all know now there's a better way to process it than grabbing that bottle of liquor or having that extra 6-pack of beer.
Sure. I tell you what, you described it real. I like how you articulate things. Paul, there's somebody that's sitting in their apartment right now, or their house, or they're sitting in a fire station, police station, sitting in their car. They're listening to this. You got a chance to give them a message, and you got about 2 minutes to give that message. They're lost, don't know what to do. They're scared. They don't want to tell people they're scared because they think they got to be tough. What are you going to tell them?
Number one, I'd tell them, call me. If you want to talk, call me. Number two, don't worry about the stigma. The stigma is what's killing people. It's killing our brothers and sisters in Tennessee, in Maryland, in California, Washington. It's killing our brothers and sisters all over the U.S. and all over the world. It's the stigma that we're big and tough and we don't need help. We're there to help. But there comes a point in time where you do need help. I mean, if you do this long enough and you see enough, something's going to bother you. If it doesn't, you're not human. You have no emotion, So call me, forget about the stigma. Let's get the right kind of help. There's folks out there that are therapists or whatever, and they really don't know what a fireman or a policeman or they've never done any of these jobs. They've never sit around with us at the station. They don't know how we are, but there are people out there who can give you, who know these things, who know how we act on everyday, life, and they can relate. They've been around us long enough to relate to us, and they can help in a way that is meaningful. They're not just going to sit and ask you these generic questions. Well, why does this bother you? How do you feel? They're not going to do that if you get the right kind of help. And things can be better. That's what I would tell them.
I think all three of us plus are living proof that things can get better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I know where I was at. It wasn't a good place at all. I'm in a much better place now. So I could probably speak the same for Skip, too. And I know you. So, yeah, you look better, man. You even look better. I mean, you're a couple 100 miles away, so I can get away with that.
I tell you what, Paul, I liked, that's going to get through to somebody. And if you want to get hold of Paul, go to burnoutpodcast.org, email us, and we'll connect you to Paul anytime. And Paul, I ask everybody this, me and Jeff does, what's a statement or a quote that resonates in your mind when you're going through some stuff that keeps you going? Is there a statement or a quote that keeps you going?
Life should not be a journey to the grave with intent of arriving safely in a pretty well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride."
That's good. Hey, read that one more time to us. I want people to listen to that.
Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty, well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride."
I like that. I'm going to remember that one. Well, Paul, man, thank you for coming on here. I remember you said you're not tech savvy. You jumped on here. You did a great show. I believe you got through to somebody that's listening to us right now. And Jeff, always, man, it's been a pleasure you coming on here and being co-host.
Oh, I enjoy it. I haven't seen Paul for a while.
Yeah, it's good seeing you,
We'll
man.
share stories offline.
I'd like to thank everybody that's come on here to listen. Remember, when you go home tonight, shut your phone off, shut your radio off, get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Burnout. Burnout is brought to you by the Worldwide Peer Support. You can visit Burnout Podcast at burntoutpodcast.org or visit Worldwide Peer Support at worldwidepeersupport.org. Your host for Burnt Out is Skip O. Executive producer Sean P. Neal. And produced by mypodcast.media.